Evolution, as we know it today, is extremely complex and something we still can't fully understand, comprehend, or see in our own lifetimes. But it wasn't long ago that we had no idea how it worked. Thanks to the works of many influential scientists, we can observe the unique ways that species have and are evolving for better or for worse. Darwin's 1859 book On the Origin of Species talked at length about natural selection, a theory created by Darwin. According to the Natural History Museum, in natural selection, genetic mutations that are beneficial to an individual's survival are passed on through reproduction. This results in a new generation of organisms that are more likely to survive to reproduce. An example of this is the giraffe. Giraffes' food are the leaves of trees, and to reach that food, they have to use their incredibly long neck and legs. If a giraffe naturally didn't have long legs or a long neck, they're unable to reach for their food and they'll die before they can reproduce. Whereas giraffes that have long necks and legs can reach the food easier, so they last long enough to reproduce with other giraffes that have long necks and legs. The genetic mutations for long necks and legs would pass down from this reproduction, and the cycle would go on so long as the genetic mutation is needed. Darwin found many species that helped prove this point, and his collection from his expeditions was massive. He popularized 13 mammal species, collected over 100 bones and fragments, and he traveled to 5 continents in his years-long expedition. But before his natural selection theory, many people held a firm belief that organisms were so complex and unique that it would be impossible for anything except God's intervention to design them in such a way. Another theory that coincides with that belief is that organisms, such as bugs, spontaneously generated from mud and that nature produced the variety of creatures, which is accurate, but only slightly. Thanks to Darwin and other scientists that have done extensive research on this topic, we know the extent of which evolution and natural selection works in organisms around the world. One such scientist that helped prove this was a German entomologist, naturalist, and scientific illustrator named Maria Sibylla Merian. She proved the existence of metamorphosis and the reproduction of bugs on a years-long trip to Suriname, drawing her findings and publishing them in the 1600s and 1700s. But natural selection and evolution, while important for a species' survival in the wild, can prove to be detrimental for both themselves and their environment. The Anolis carolinensis is a bright green lizard species native to the southeastern United States, but they managed to get to different parts of the world, such as Hawaii, Guam, and Taiwan. In the Ogasawara Islands off the coast of Japan, the Anolis carolinensis have preyed on native species and overtaken the environment, causing destruction. The species had evolved to thrive in these new places. With each reproduction, a new generation inherits more of the traits that are needed to survive in places such as the Ogasawara Islands, even if they weren't meant to live there. According to a Nature News research paper, the Anolis carolinensis adapted in around 20 generations. The longer the species stays there, the more it adapts to it and thrives there. And thanks to climate change as well, we can see the amount of generations needed to adapt and survive to changing environments shortened. The world's species have adapted to their environment for so long without it changing so drastically, but when climate change is rapidly warming the Earth and changing the weather patterns, species need to rapidly evolve to survive it. In the graph shown, you can see that from 1950 onwards, the climate continued to spike upwards. It hasn't even been more than 100 years since then, and it doesn't show any signs of slowing down. For any species to adapt, even us as humans, we need to evolve and pass down traits so future generations adapt to this rapid change. So thinking on everything that Darwin, Merian, and other scientists have contributed to the idea of evolution and natural selection, how should humans evolve? What if we bioengineered our own evolution, sort of like how humans are bioengineering other animals and crops? If we could predict how the climate would change, such as rising temperatures, more ultraviolet rays through the breaking ozone layer, and rising sea levels, could we possibly create our own evolution to prepare for such effects, like how scientists are breeding algae and coral to withstand more heat with the rising temperature climates? We might have to think about it sooner than we thought.